The Ilari were a vision of serene beauty. Their bodies, sculpted from a luminous opalescent material, shimmered with an inner light. They moved with a timeless grace, their voices like the gentle susurrus of wind through crystalline chimes. They were the inheritors of 1,000,000,000 years of peace, a civilization that had conquered the ravages of time through genetic perfection and advanced cellular regeneration. To the Ilari, death by natural causes was an archaic concept, a relic of a less enlightened age. They looked upon the newly discovered humanity with a detached curiosity, like observing a delicate, short-lived insect trapped in amber. When the first human delegation arrived on Ilaria Prime, the contrast was stark. Our bodies, with their soft, mutable flesh, our faces etched with the lines of experience and the subtle marks of aging, seemed crude and fragile beside the Ilari's flawless forms. Our lifespans, a mere blink in the vastness of cosmic time, were a source of polite pity. The Ilari capital was a city of soaring, organically shaped structures that seemed to grow rather than be built. Its inhabitants moved with a languid elegance, their days stretching into seemingly endless cycles of contemplation and artistic expression. Their art was intricate, their philosophies profound, but there was an undeniable stillness, a lack of urgency that permeated their perfect existence. Ambassador Evelyn Reed, humanity's lead representative, found herself both fascinated and faintly uneasy during the initial diplomatic exchanges. The Ilari were unfailingly courteous, their knowledge vast, but their perspective felt distant. They spoke of cosmic events spanning millennia with the same calm detachment they discussed the changing patterns of light in their perfectly regulated environment. Your dedication to rapid progress is admirable, Terran, High Luminary Theron, the Ilari's chief diplomat, remarked during one formal reception, his voice a melodious whisper. But one wonders if such haste is not born from the inherent limitations of your temporal existence. Evelyn, acutely aware of the faint lines around her own eyes in the flawlessly polished obsidian mirrors that adorned the Ilari halls, offered a diplomatic smile. Perhaps, Luminary Theron. But it also fuels our drive to explore, to innovate, to experience as much as we can within the time we have. The Ilari exchanged subtle, almost imperceptible glances. It was clear they considered our limited lifespan a fundamental flaw, an inherent weakness that prevented us from achieving their level of serene understanding. Over the next few decades, as humanity expanded into the galactic community, this perception persisted. We were the energetic newcomers, prone to impulsive actions and driven by a relentless need for novelty. Our art was passionate and often chaotic, reflecting the ephemeral nature of our emotions. Our science was driven by a constant desire to overcome limitations, including the ultimate limitation of death itself. The Ilari and other long-lived species observed our frantic activity with a bemused tolerance. They had already traversed these paths eons ago, they seemed to imply, and had found true wisdom in the acceptance of timelessness. Then came the Void Blight. The Void Blight was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. It wasn't a weapon, not a biological agent, but a fundamental disruption of reality itself. It originated in the uncharted Outer Rim, a creeping shadow that consumed stars, warped space-time, and erased entire systems from existence. It moved with a slow but inexorable pace, defying all known laws of physics. The long-lived civilizations, with their vast archives of knowledge and their millennia of accumulated wisdom, analyzed the phenomenon with meticulous detachment. They ran simulations, developed complex theoretical models, but their conclusions were always the same. The Void Blight was an unstoppable cosmic event, a natural cycle of entropy on a scale they could not comprehend, let alone influence. Generations of Ilari scientists studied the encroaching shadow, their perfect bodies showing no signs of the panic that gripped the shorter-lived races. They published elegant treatises on the Blight's quantum entanglement properties and its interaction with higher dimensions, their tone one of academic curiosity rather than alarm. "It is a sad but inevitable conclusion," Luminary Theron announced. To the Galactic Council, his opalescent form radiating a gentle melancholy. The Void Blight represents a cosmic reset, a return to the fundamental nothingness from which all existence arises. We shall observe its progress with philosophical fortitude. The shorter-lived races, however, were not so sanguine. Their civilizations, built on timescales of mere centuries or millennia, faced imminent annihilation. They pleaded with the Ilari and the other ancient races for a solution, for a way to halt the approaching oblivion. But the Immortals remained impassive, their long perspectives seemingly rendering the impending doom as a distant, almost abstract concept. Humanity, with its characteristic impatience and its ingrained aversion to accepting defeat, reacted differently. Our scientists, unburdened by eons of perceived wisdom and acutely aware of the rapidly shrinking window of opportunity, approached the Void Blight with a frantic, almost desperate energy. "We don't have time for philosophical fortitude," Dr. Jian Li, head of the Terran Gravitational Anomaly Research Institute, declared during a heated Galactic Council emergency session. "We need solutions, not resignation." Humanity poured its resources into studying the Blight, not just its theoretical underpinnings, but its vulnerabilities. Our physicists, accustomed to pushing the boundaries of known science to overcome our relatively short technological development time, proposed radical, untested theories. Our engineers, driven by a visceral need to protect our fragile existence, designed audacious, borderline insane experiments. While the Immortals contemplated the Blight's elegant entropy, humanity was desperately searching for a crack in its cosmic armor. Humanity's approach to the Void Blight was characterized by a reckless creativity born from our finite lifespans. We didn't have the luxury of waiting for perfect solutions or for millennia of gradual understanding. We had to act, and we had to act now. Dr. Jian Li's team focused on the Blight's interaction with gravity. Their radical theory proposed that the Blight wasn't simply destroying matter and energy, it was somehow unraveling the fundamental forces that held reality together, starting with gravity. If this were true, then perhaps manipulating gravitational fields on an unprecedented scale could disrupt its progress. The Project Chimera was born, an audacious plan to construct a network of colossal gravitational emitters on the edge of the Blight, powered by captured stellar cores and designed to generate gravitational waves of unimaginable intensity. The risks were astronomical. A miscalculation could trigger a localized space-time collapse or even accelerate the Blight's advance. The Ilari observed Project Chimera with a mixture of skepticism and concern. Such reckless manipulation of fundamental forces is unwise. "Terran," Luminary Theron cautioned, "patience and understanding are the keys to navigating cosmic events of this magnitude." Evelyn Reed's response was blunt. "With all due respect, Luminary, our lifespan doesn't afford us the luxury of patience. We will either find a solution or cease to exist trying." Humanity rallied, pooling resources and expertise with the other shorter-lived races who saw a glimmer of desperate hope in Project Chimera. Construction began at a frenetic pace, driven by the understanding that every moment counted. Human engineers, accustomed to working under pressure and to rapid iteration, pushed the limits of known technology. As the network of gravitational emitters neared completion, a new crisis emerged. The Void Blight began to accelerate, its shadow engulfing nearby systems at an alarming rate. Project Chimera had to be activated prematurely before it was fully calibrated. The activation sequence was a tense, chaotic affair. Human technicians, working under immense pressure, initiated the chain reaction, unleashing gravitational waves of unprecedented power into the path of the blight. The effect was immediate and unpredictable. Instead of halting the blight, the gravitational waves seemed to agitate it, causing violent distortions in space-time. Fears arose that humanity's desperate gamble had backfired spectacularly. For a terrifying period, it seemed that Project Chimera had only worsened the crisis. The Ilari expressed their profound disappointment, their perfect equanimity finally tinged with a hint of something akin to worry. But then, subtle anomalies began to appear in the Blight's leading edge. Sections of the shadow flickered, momentarily revealing the stars behind. The Blight's inexorable advance slowed, then stuttered. Dr. Jian Li and her team worked tirelessly, analyzing the data. They realized that their initial theory was partially incorrect. The gravitational waves weren't directly disrupting the Blight, but they were interacting with it in a way they hadn't anticipated. The intense gravitational forces were creating temporal distortions at the Blight's edge, tiny tears in the fabric of space-time. These tears, normally fleeting and insignificant, were somehow interacting with the Blight's fundamental instability, creating feedback loops that were hindering its progress. The key, they realized, wasn't brute force, but precisely calibrated temporal disruptions. Humanity's reckless gamble had inadvertently stumbled upon a weakness in the cosmic shadow. Now came the truly audacious part. To exploit this weakness, they needed to introduce precisely controlled temporal anomalies directly into the Blight itself. This was far beyond the capabilities of Project Chimera. They needed something smaller, more maneuverable, and capable of withstanding the Blight's internal distortions. Humanity looked to its explorers, its daredevils, those driven by an insatiable curiosity and a willingness to face unimaginable risks for a fleeting glimpse of the unknown. They looked to the temporal pioneers. Captain Eva Rostova was one such individual. A veteran of numerous near-relativistic voyages, she had experienced the strange vagaries of time dilation firsthand. She and a hand-picked crew, piloting a heavily shielded experimental vessel equipped with a prototype temporal drive, volunteered for a mission that was almost certainly suicide. Their mission, to plunge directly into the heart of the Void Blight and deploy a series of micro-singularity generators, creating a cascade of controlled temporal distortions. Their lifespan, so often seen as a limitation, now became their driving force. They had nothing to lose but a relatively short existence, and the potential reward was the salvation of the galaxy. Eva Rostova and her crew vanished into the inky blackness of the Void Blight. For weeks, the galaxy held its breath, the serene silence of the Ilari broken by the anxious whispers of the shorter-lived races. The Immortals, for the first time in their long history, felt a flicker of genuine uncertainty. Then, faint telemetry. Signals began to emerge from the Blight. The temporal drive was functioning, creating localized distortions that rippled outwards. The micro-singularity generators were being deployed, each one a tiny tear in the fabric of time within the cosmic shadow. The effect was profound. The Void Blight, once an unstoppable wave of oblivion, began to fragment. Sections of the shadow peeled away, revealing the lost stars within. Its advance slowed to a crawl, then halted completely. The data packets Eva's ship managed to transmit, before its final inevitable destruction, contained the key to neutralizing the Blight. The precisely timed and localized temporal distortions were creating a form of temporal static, disrupting the Blight's fundamental processes and causing it to unravel. The galaxy erupted in celebration. The shorter-lived races hailed humanity as saviors. Even the Ilari, in their measured pronouncements, acknowledged the unexpected efficacy of humanity's unconventional approach. Luminary Theron addressed Ambassador Reed, his opalescent form radiating a new, almost respectful light. "Your limited temporal existence, Terran," he began, appears to have fostered a capacity for decisive action and a willingness to embrace risk that we, in our timelessness, had perhaps overlooked. Evelyn, her face etched with the weariness of the long crisis, but her eyes shining with quiet pride, simply nodded. Perhaps, luminary, we learned long ago that time is a precious gift, and we intend to make the most of every moment we have. The Void Blight was contained not through timeless wisdom or perfect understanding, but through the desperate ingenuity and the fleeting courage of a species acutely aware of its own mortality. The galaxy had witnessed the power of imperfection, the strength that lies in the understanding that time is finite and that the most meaningful legacies are often forged in the fires of urgency and the willingness to embrace the unknown, even if that embrace is tragically brief. Humanity, the short-lived spark in the vast darkness, had shown the timeless stars the true value of a fleeting flame. The obsidian mirrors of Ilaria Prime reflected not just perfect serenity, but now, perhaps, a hint of the profound beauty found in the perfect imperfection of a life lived fully, however short it may be.